right, thanks everyone so much for coming. We are going to get started. I'm Colleen. I'm the executive director over at Latitude, and I'm really excited to present Bri Robinson and Candace Saunders as part of Artists in Residence program here at Latitude. Latitude is hosting 8 artists in residence this year in 2025, and we are so lucky to have Bri as our first resident this year. Bri is a mixed media artist, analog collagist, sculpture artist, and historian who weaves intricate narratives of love, loss, and identity across the expansive Midwest. Raised in Ohio and now based in Chicago, Bri's work reflects the rich cultural tapestry of the region, combining personal history with broader and societal concepts. Brought up by a large, close-knit family, Bri draws inspiration from the everyday moments and memories that shape our lives, using images found in family albums, adult magazines, and personal portraits. Through their unique process of cutting, pasting, and layering, Bri deepens the meaning of these found objects, transforming them into the evocative works of art. Bri's practice is deeply rooted in the exploration of identity, relationships, and the constant evolution of self. By merging archival materials with elements of pop culture, they create thought-provoking narratives that invite viewers to engage with the complexities of queer experience. Through their work, Bri honors the past while also pushing the boundaries of contemporary art history, creating pieces, that are introspective as they are expansive. I am going to pass it over to the wonderful Bri so they can introduce Candace and get this talk going. Thank you so much for being here, and you can take it away, Bri.
Hey, divas. Hi, chat. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna throw it to Candace. Candace Sanders, my best friend, my divalicious queen, will be hosting me in conversation right now. Thanks.
What a fabulous pass. Yeah. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Respite. I'm Candace. I'm one half of Within Digital and love to just welcome you again to this special edition of Midwest Connection in the Digital Respite. Here we are right now. Midwest Connection is a conversation series that focuses on Black Midwestern creatives and their practice. And if you don't know, Within Digital is a digital respite co-founded by Bri and I that engages Black artists, creatives, and art curious in curated conversations about art, the creative process, and being Black on the internet in the 21st century. And you can read more about our mission, our vision, and our values at withindigital.net. So I'm just so excited to be here in conversation with Bri tonight and to talk about the amazing work that they've produced during their residency at Latitude. And Bri is one of my best friends and #1 creative collaborator, and I'm just grateful for the chance to delve deeper into the genius behind these works. So before we start the program, we like to do a little bit of housekeeping. We have digital boundaries that we like to uphold in our space, and we invite you to honor them with us. So our main boundaries are that Midwest Connection is a digital space that is meant for Black people as priority, and we allow non-Black participants to attend, but also advise to allow for Black digital members to have priority in commenting and asking questions during the discourse. And we will try to attend to every comment and question, but if we're unable to do so, we appreciate the support. And archive videos will exist on Within Digital's website, Instagram, and YouTube channel from this conversation, so you can always go back and refer to it once the conversation is over tonight. And our chat boundaries, we love the chat, so we'd love for you to engage with our emojis. I'll get to that in a moment, but our conversations in Midwest Connection will center Blackness and the diaspora, which means any form of racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia of any kind will not be tolerated. And if you engage in those behaviors, members will be banned from the chat and blocked. We really encourage inquisitive and curious discourse engaged via the option of DMing or commenting in the chat. And if you prefer another method of communication, you could also send us an email at wearewithindigital@gmail.com. And so, just as I said, to support the chat, we have various select emojis that you can tap on during the conversation. And today's emojis are the spiral/cyclone, scissors, and the wonderful green-haired rock star person. So if at any point in the conversation you're loving what's being said, or you just want to show your appreciation and support, we love those emojis as a way to just kind of affirm and connect with each other during this time. And we also have a fun engagement piece tonight, which is a bingo card. So for this conversation, we're talking about a lot of different themes, but there are some things that we will return to inevitably, and we would love for you to take a picture of this bingo card and just kind of call out those moments in the chat during the conversation, or even, to keep them to yourself, and we can talk about them at the end. But these are just some things to notice and to engage with, and we thought it'd be a fun way to kind of stay connected during the conversation. Following conversation, there will be a time of Q&A, so please feel free to drop any questions in the chat at any point during the program. And as you engage, reflect, and connect in the chat, we request that within this space that we share, that you show kindness, compassion, and respect towards us and your fellow attendees. So now let's enter the respite together. And I was really reflecting, and I was like, I think it's time for us to have a theme song. So we'll have to be in the works. And if you have any suggestions, let us know. Okay. Bri, are you ready?
Oh, I'm so ready.
So ready. Yeah. Yeah, this format is so new for us, but it's going to be so fun. So, the question we always like to ask, and I would like to throw to you, is how are you entering the respite today?
Today, it's so weird that it's just like me and you, and like we're not talking to anybody else. But I'm entering the respite a little sleepy, a little dreamy, a little curious, a little antsy. But I'm excited to enter the respite today.
Yeah. We're here in the respite. We're entering living, laughing, loving in the respite. I think for me, I'm entering the respite with a lot of anticipation for this conversation and just joy as I had the chance to go through all the great work you've created during your time at Latitude. I just love to see like your brain in this format, and so excited to talk more about it. Yeah, I think kind of one of the first questions to kind of ground us right now that I would like to ask is, for people who don't know you, who is Bri Robinson?
I am a lot of things jumbled into one thing, and that is a diva. I'm diva first, diva last, diva second. But I think mostly about myself in like relation to people. I feel like I am a youngest child. I feel like I am an artist. I'm an Ohioan. I'm a Midwesterner. I'm a collector. I'm a jokester. I'm a musician. I'm a critic. But mostly I'm a diva.
And a diva can be so many things. And I like just kind of listed out, this multifacetedness that I think really shows up in the work and in the references that you pull for this work. So yeah. And I'd also say that you are a culinary genius, a musical curatorial savant, I would say, always making the best playlists. Yeah. Humorist, like the jokester. I think all of that is very, very true. And I might have missed you saying this, but you are from Ohio.
That's true.
And that is in the Midwest. And so I just got you a bingo. I'm trying to help.
Yeah, that was like super quick.
But you come from a really strong matrilineal lineage, like that, like with a bond, and you mentioned that in your artist bio, the close-knit family. And I know that family history is a central part of your practice, and it, shows up in a multitude of ways. So I'm just curious about how, you see that family history and those histories showing up in these works.
Yes, I feel like not to be like that, but I feel like everything I do is like family first. Like I put my family first. I think about those divas. For those who don't know, like I have a very big, juicy family. Um, that is like my mom is one of 9 children. I grew up under a lot of those children, my aunts and uncles and my grandma in a little city called Warren, Ohio, where I would spend a lot of time on porches, outside, playing, having fun. Um, and I feel like that shows up in everything I do. I feel like it's linked to me infinitely. Um, I think about Ohio and matriarchs a lot because it's deeply like matriarchs are deeply connected to Ohio for me. I feel like Ohio is the mother. Um,
Mhm.
Rose back to Ohio in a way. But I spent a lot of time with a lot of lady, like older women. And I think about it, and I think a lot of my work is about this desire I have to be close to those people that I grew up around. Um, so yeah, I feel like I'm curious about a lot, but I'm also like very familiar with my history and my lineage. And I think that reflects in my work a bunch.
Yeah, I think that that's always a through line, and I love how like visceral and present those memories you have are with
Mhm.
those women. And I feel like you always have so many stories, and like I just always see how shaped you are by those experiences, and how, everything you kind of talk about or touch, like you always kind of link it back to them in some way. And I think that that's so powerful to just carry those memories and those legacies with you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and you spent uh majority, like all of your life in Ohio, and then when did you move to Chicago? Like what year was that?
I moved to Chicago in August 2023.
Okay, so 20.
Um, yeah, I moved here to go to SAIC, School of Art Institute of Chicago,
Shout
and
out.
shout out to Chicago. I love Chicago. Chicago and Ohio are really different.
Could you say more?
I feel like Ohio's the mother. I feel like Ohio's really slow. We talk about it all the time and within, but I feel like it's really like slow, um, yearnful.
Hmm.
A lot of yearning in Ohio, a lot of desire to feel differently, to experience life differently. There are a lot of cravings in Ohio, and I feel like Chicago is just like a little more sure of itself as a
Mm-hmm.
city. I feel like Chicago is quicker than I'm used to. I feel like there's a different tempo to Chicago that I really like. And I feel like I have a lot of fun here. I feel like I um, am forced to move a lot here. I
Hmm.
don't, I'm not as sedentary in Chicago. And I like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And then when you were, doing these pieces of work, how did Chicago kind of influence these works versus the works that you've made in Ohio? Like, has anything surprised you or been revealed to you in a different way? Being in a different landscape, being in a different kind of energy, atmosphere, people, just everything's so different. I'm curious how it affected and inspired you.
I think I'm having a moment lately where I'm being a little more social with my work. I feel like my work has always, I think the scenes in Ohio versus Chicago have like influenced my work a lot more, a lot differently. I
Mhm.
think in Ohio, there's like this internal yearning a lot that I was dealing with, like this desire to like look inward. And I feel like in Chicago, I've had like, since I went to SAIC, I feel like I had different networks of people to like not only just like talk to, That's new. But I can you close that? I It's the right door. No. I feel like I've just been able to bounce more ideas off of people, and I feel like I've also had the opportunity to see a lot more art and
Mm.
really be inspired by that.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious. We'll get into more of like the specifics of the work, but I'm thinking just about the evolutions like that your work has taken and how like the work that you kind of started with was I think a lot of it was like very abstracted in a certain way like and I feel like now there's like a lot more precision to it that I find really intriguing and I think maybe that's just like internal growth like as a person and like you kind of can narrow in on certain things that you want to pick up and focus on. But yeah, we'll talk more about that. But that was something I just kind of thought of as you were talking.
Hmm. Wait, can you show some stuff?
Yeah, let's do it. Bingo.
Yeah. So this is what I've been working on at Lat. I made 10 different collages. 10 or
Mm,
11. I can't count. It might be 11.
I think that's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepa. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there a particular slide you want me to stay on?
Yeah, wherever you like. That's good.
Oh, I'll go back. Um, yeah, and I'm thinking about the precision and the discourse that you've been having with a different network of people. Like, what are the questions that you've been asking yourself as you've been developing this work, this new body of work?
The new body.
Yep.
I feel like I am not the best at asking questions. I'm not really good at asking questions to myself. I feel like a lot of my process is intuitive. I rely a lot on my own moving aqueous feelings. I listen to a lot of music and like cry and like think about my childhood. Um, and I develop my work in that way. But I feel like people that I've met and like come into contact with have like asked me a lot about like why I'm making the work I make. And I haven't really thought about that. Like, why is a good question. I feel like the way that I feel about why, I am like, why? Like I get defensive about it.
Mm,
Why is good. Um, so yeah, I think the why, and then I feel like content wise, not like in a Instagram content way, but I feel
mm,
like subject matter, I'm constantly trying to talk to like myself or like to spirits or like people that I've met that have like passed on. I feel like I was talking to you about my process being something or this like act that like I'm trying to get by a lot of my body. Like
mhm.
I'm trying to like release the feeling a lot. But I think more recently that I reflect on that, I'm just like, that might have to change. Like, I don't want everything to, everything that I'm creating to just be like this sort of release.
Mm,
I kind of want to feel more like precise and intentional about what I am putting out, even if it is cathartic, you know?
mhm. Well, I think, looking in this work, I think the choice of materials that you've selected really, to me, show that even if it's like about that initial like rush of having to get something out, there is still a intentionality, there's still a process, there are still
Mm-hmm.
questions being answered in the exploration, like even if it's not like, oh, today I'm thinking about XYZ and how do I execute XYZ? Like I still see the kind of there's a logic in my uh perspective of the work and there's a lot that you're considering and um thinking about in the making. And so yeah, I know that, you, like you just said, you're really into music and you make really great playlists, and you um are interested in music criticism. And I, know that music is such a central part of how you, like you said, you process information, how you always know the right song to express like a mood or a feeling. And I'm curious, during this period, were there specific songs you were returning to, or albums, or things you were thinking about? Because I feel like maybe it's not so much uh the questions you're asking, but like what you're kind of magnetized to, or things that are magnetized to you that help you kind of like ask a question, but in a different way. If it's not an estimated question, but it's through these different mediums. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
That makes sense. I think you're saying like, who are you communicating with? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
who are you talking to? I feel like during this time, I am into astrology a lot. That's on the bingo card. I feel like during this period, it was Aquarius season. I was listening to a lot of Tinashe. I
Mm.
was listening to a lot of,
Mhm.
you know, music that my dad would send me. I feel like my dad sends me a song on Spotify every day. I appreciate that. I love expanding my ears. I feel like I just like to think, I feel like I'm always like zooming out and zooming in at the same time. Like
Mm.
I, especially with music, I feel like I'm always trying to relate a feeling back to myself and then back to the song. Like I think the first few pieces that I made, like this one, and I think the first one in the slide, these first three, I was thinking a lot about lyric. I have a lot of trouble verbalizing how I feel. I feel like it takes me a minute to like really process how I'm feeling without the help of a song.
Mm.
Um, like I process best through relation. But I was like, okay, I am having these feelings singularly. How do I do that? Through like wordplay. I think about rappers a lot. I think about Nicki Minaj a ton. I'm not gonna lie. I think about Nicki Minaj all the time.
Shout
Nicki
out.
Minaj loves to play with words. Shout out to the Barbs. Were you gonna
Shout
say
out
that?
Sagittarius.
Yes, exactly. We have the same.
Mhm.
Yes, think about that a lot. Um, yeah. So I think like music is just how I like best synthesize a feeling into words, and then I'm like, oh, I have these lyrics that I relate to. Those are feelings. Okay, let me like decode that. I think I'm talking in code a lot.
Mhm, mhm. And
Yeah.
I like that about these works. I feel like um just the composition of them, I feel like them being in this kind of border format a lot.
Mhm.
There's a Yeah, there's like a code to it when you have to kind of either turn
Yeah.
it or turn the piece. And um yeah, there's just some the motion, the thinking, like the following where you're leading. Um there's a lot in there that I've really liked in these pieces. Um, and I guess that kind of leads into my next question about, in this making, in this process, you made a lot of really interesting choices about what to reveal and what to obscure. And there's like always such an intentionality in these works and these compositions. And I'd love to hear you talk more about those decisions, and particularly maybe how you came to some of um, these like lyrics, these words that are on some of these pieces, and how you see them maybe even in the context of a larger philosophy within your work. um whether it's like through this collage medium, and through memes, or through your other writing. Yeah, I think there's a lot that you could get into with that.
I think the decisions, I'm thinking, okay,
Mhm.
what to reveal versus what to obscure. Like I said, I feel like I'm always talking in code. I feel like I am having, I've always had trouble like saying what I mean, how I mean it. I feel like I used to get in trouble a lot for not saying what I mean with like kindness and like grace. I feel like I complain a lot about not feeling like I have a lot of tact, like emotionally.
Mm.
And I feel like I have just been like reflecting about that a lot. And sometimes that comes through in the work. I feel like I've experienced a lot of things, a lot of grief, a lot of complicated feelings as they like regard my identity and like my personal experiences. And I feel like I'm expelling a lot from myself all the time. And I'm learning a lot right now that I'm a little more guarded than I thought. I thought that I was living or like expressing myself more explicitly than I truly am
Mm.
sometimes.
Wait, what do
And
you mean? What do you mean by that?
like I feel like I can be cheeky and playful a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when I'm doing that, I'm not fully being like
Mm-hmm.
explicit about how I feel. Like that's just like the bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes out in the work sometimes. Like I feel like a lot of my early works were just like focused on being beautiful. Like I was collecting materials from people that I cared about and putting that in the work. But like the thing about speaking is in code is like if other people don't know the code, like if you don't know the key to the map, you're not gonna know like where you're going. Like you're not gonna know what the symbols mean.
Mm.
And I feel like I was doing that a lot with my first pieces, like my earlier works. And some of these too are just like, what are you talking about? And I'm trying to get to a place in my practice that's a little more explicit.
Mm.
Um,
Can I ask a question about that?
yeah.
I mean, I guess that's what I'm supposed to be doing here anyway. But do you want that kind of legibility in that way? Like, do you want it to be universally, quote unquote, universally understood? Or does that feel like a pressure that comes from an external source? Or is that something that you feel like is how you want your work to start to shift and evolve into out of like a some kind of desire you have for your practice?
I think it's mostly about the, it's mostly about desire, but the desire is for truth. Like, I
Mm,
don't want it to be like I'm trying to be super mysterious, and that's what the work is about.
mm, mm.
I don't want the work to be about me trying so hard to speak in code that I don't even remember what I'm speaking in the code.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
No, that definitely makes sense. And I think that it even goes into a little bit of how I've watched you make before. Like, I feel like you're like watching you, you mentioned the intuitiveness of your process. Like, I've seen that in action, like when we were in Kansas City and I saw you scanning um and making when we were in the little lab place and
Mm.
watching you like remix your work and like add and subtract things and then um kind of just like at the end, I was like, oh, like look you and then you had like multiple versions of a piece. And I think that's kind of interesting. Like I feel like I don't know, there's like what I'm thinking about is the kind of repetition and the clarity that you can kind of come to through the making of like even if you don't know at the beginning of what you're doing, like what you're trying to say, like how you can arrive somewhere once you get to kind of the end of the process. And so um yeah, I don't know. There's something there that's just intriguing to me too. Um,
Mm.
yeah, just through that physical act and like, I don't know, just the intuitiveness and like the placement of the artifacts and the choices that you make. Um,
I feel like I had a studio visit this week and I was like trying to explain how connected my process is to music. And that's like what you're explaining, that repetition sounds like how beats go. Like
Mm.
I'm finding things and I'm like still returning to one. Like, you know how
Mm.
like in measures, if you're reading music, it's like I'm following a certain pattern of repetition, but I have
Mhm.
to start like from the one. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that uh I'm not the music nerd, so I don't know all the terms, so somebody correct me, but like the was it like the syncopation, like the meter, like all of that type of stuff. The um I can see that in the work. I think through when we get more into it, but through the pieces that kind of let's see, where was one I'm thinking of. I think this piece, I think the way that the images split and just the rhythm of them, like the way it can be read, I think vertically and horizontally, there's something in that to me, the musicality of that, um, and the way you play with spacing, like there is something there that, yeah, is re re reminiscent of rhythm and beats and stuff. So I'm glad you um brought that up because I see it's like all connected, right? Like it is all a part of your like your philosophies and individually beats like sounds may make a certain sound, but in the song
Yeah.
they make a song. I don't know.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, um, are there any like artistic movements or cultural heritages or artists that you see your work in relationship to?
I feel like there are artists that I think about all the time. I feel like I think about Dadaist collagist a lot. Like I think about An's art and Hannah Hoke a lot. Just because I think about Dada and just like nonsense a lot, but that's just because I like to play and have fun. Um, I think about Todd Gray and Troy Montez Mishi's collages a lot, but I think my like formative uh like artistic influence was probably like my grandma's quilts. I remember like when I was a kid, my grandma would make quilts out of me and my brother's like old clothes that we outgrew. And I
Hmm.
was like, ooh, I wanna grandmother. I wanna emulate that. But I also like I made a quilt once at my first residency
Oh,
um, in Cleveland.
I remember that
But
one.
I don't have like the patience to like focus on how well my stitches look and things like that. So I feel like for the time being, while I'm like young, hot, ebony, I'm just gonna like make some collages. Like I'll just work with this paper and this garbage that I'm picking up and it'll be cute. It'll be something that I feel. It'll be a good time. It'll be cute
So collages are the young hot ebony's version of quilting.
for sure.
I
For
think
sure.
definitely a soundbite.
Absolutely.
Um, and just to even get a little further into that, in those artists that you mentioned, is there like something that you see across the board in all of them that you're really drawn to that you want to reflect in your own work?
Mm, mm, I think the through line for a lot of them is just like this use of happenstance. Like it's like we have what we have. Let's work with that. That'll convey something. It's what we have.
Mhm.
Sure. Um, and I like identify with that concept a lot, like of just like using what you got and then alchemizing it. Got
Cool.
that from you.
Period.
Yeah.
That's that Midwest hardiness, the Midwest
Mhm.
grit. That's a bingo for anyone who's
Bingo.
playing. Um, but yeah, I think, you take these objects and in the juxtaposition, in the layering, in the placement, you imbue them with such meaning and um yeah, just like that. I don't know where, how they come into your life, and we can talk more about that, but um from the moment that you pick them up and then you make the choices about where they're going to go and how they're going to be revealed or obscured. Um, yeah, I think that just all of that together uh, is a part of that lineage of making something out of nothing, quote unquote, and like uh, creating a legacy from that, and like how your grandma did that with the quilts, out of you guys' clothes and created new life out of them. You're doing that same thing with your work, and I, love that. Uh,
Lineage.
yeah, we talked a little bit about the uh phrases, the words, the wordplay. And I'm also just wondering, there are particular pieces that I saw that had repetition of some of the words, and I'm wondering about, like, is there an overarching conversation happening across these works, or what is the relationship between those ones that are kind of seeming to be speaking to each other? And I can go to those ones that I'm referencing, but I think it is yeah, by hook or crook, or by hook or by crook, excuse me. And it's this one, electric and brutal. So they both have, I'd like to talk about who you'd be to and from me and them.
Mm.
I think that, yeah. And I'm
Mm.
just curious about maybe what that phrase in each of these works might have connected to or represented for you.
Um, I feel like I was thinking about, well, by hook or by crook is the first thing I made at Lat. And Electric and Brutal is the last thing I made.
No.
Um, that was not on purpose.
Oh.
But I think uh for both of those pieces I was feeling like a little disconnected from my body, a
Mm,
little unsure about like my relation to people or like things or whatever.
mhm,
And I was thinking about like the the spiral, the throb of like coming and going
mm,
in like relation to people.
mhm,
And I feel like for by hook or by crook, I think I said something about sluts and dogs, and I like created this dichotomy in my head about like loyalty or just like discard. And I was thinking about that a lot, like for some reason when I first got here. But I think now I'm just like, oh, I am, I feel like a lot of us are in transitory periods in our lives. I'm
mhm,
like, oh, like things come, things go. Who am I to it? Who will I be from it?
mhm,
What's tea? Um, there was something else I was thinking about that. But I was also thinking specifically about magazines and like early magazines and like the use of, I can't remember the word for how they would photo cut and paste images. But
Oh,
like,
like
you know,
lecture set? Like, well, that's type, but I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to.
it's like not, it's not a woodcut, but it's like in that lineage of a woodcut of like repeating an image. I was just thinking about that and
Hmm.
doing that analog sort of thing,
Not
analog like use of material. Huh?
stamping. You're not talking about stamping.
It could be stamping. It might be. It might be Lionel Cut. It's something like that. The language escapes me.
Wait, are you talking about when they like put an image on like a rubber thing and then transfer it?
Hmm. Ooh, wait, it might be photo montage too.
Is it photo montage? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the term for it.
But
Hmm.
it's that. I was thinking about that when I was doing the repetition of words because I was thinking about magazines. I feel like towards like I'm thinking about design a lot more towards the end of my residency. I
Hmm.
right, I want your nachos. I I'm thinking about design because beautiful things,
Yeah.
legibility.
Well, that's really, as a graphic designer, I really was taking note of just the formal and compositional qualities in this work that I felt had so much, like with the typography, I felt like there was so many different dimensions of that happening in a way that um really like intrigued me. And I really appreciated just the different scales of text, and like the moments where you're using really small type to background and these larger moments that kind of disrupt and foreground the work, but it's like it is very designed, right? Like it's not like you're just putting there's balance, there's hierarchy, there's um yeah, just all of those different design elements happening, and you're just using scale and it's just all these art terms, but I
To
was
be
thinking,
a leader in this world.
yeah, there's just like I think particular grid I was kind of seeing in some of these that stuck out for me. But yeah, for those two pieces, I know we've been talking about them a little bit, but I also noticed the kind of um split between them. Like both of them kind of had those two pieces that were ripped and kind of
Mm.
balancing both compositions, and it made me think a lot about like tearing the veil, right? Like the um spiritual veil between this realm and like another realm. And I didn't know because in this one, the full reading is like these folks have conversations through the ether about me. And I was like, oh, and then you have this church bulletin, and then in uh electric and brutal, there's like all these things contained in the split. And so I was just wondering, you know, like there's just such a spiritual resonance for those ones to me. And I was really curious about if there was something you were thinking about. I know we've talked a little bit about spirituality in
Oh, for sure.
our text conversations, but if there was anything you wanted to talk about in relation to these works.
I feel like I was talking spiritually about my relationship to like a lot of people that I know that have passed. I feel like I experienced a lot of death and like traumatic events when I was younger. And I feel like a lot of times I, like between then and now, I felt like there was no way for me to connect with those people, like those folks that have like gone beyond the tangible.
Mhm.
Um, but there are ways. And sometimes that is like me praying or me like lighting some candles. Sometimes that's just me like hearing a song that says a name that I haven't heard in years, or like there are signs everywhere for the
Mhm.
eyes to see. And I was thinking a lot about that. And also, I feel like for Electric and Brutal, I was just thinking mostly about my body and like my relationship to queerness and like this weird antsy feeling I have that I'm damned every 6 to 8 months that occurs, or just like things like that. And thinking about like, I feel like in the wake of a lot of people that I loved passing, there would be moments of anxiety that I couldn't like really express. And it would feel like there was like something on me, or like that I was like carrying this ghost. Um, but I'm feeling through that differently now
Mhm.
that I'm not like 15 in
Mhm.
Ohio.
Yeah, I think there's like yeah, that conversation happening across different realms and also different moments in time. Um, yeah, and I was noting that as I was looking through these works, like I think that these collages, there's um so much storytelling I see in each of them, and like reading the titles and then just looking at the different like moments in each, you know,
Mm.
I'm thinking about this one in particular, sensuous engagement. That's entanglement. Why do I keep saying engagement? Entanglement. Um, yeah, and there's the, we have the Audre Lorde little quote, and then we have this, which I wanted to also ask you about what this particular piece of paper was, but it's
Mm.
from my like reading, it was describing like somebody describing a sexual experience. And I didn't know which magazine that one came from. I didn't know if it was Black Dolls or Black Doll, or somewhere else. And yeah, I think it'd be interesting for you to talk a little bit about where you source a lot of these materials from, and yeah, that part of your work.
Sourcing materials. I feel like I was saying about my grandmother's process and like other artists, I love working with what I find. I feel like I find a lot of things in the city on walks. I feel like I collected the playing card, the KN95 mask, and the scratch off on the street somewhere. But I feel like most of the texts I have are like sometimes archival material, sometimes like letters, sometimes like I'm pretty sure these ones came from the top piece is from an SAIC magazine from like 1976 that I got.
Right here. This one.
The
Oh, right here.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Um I think that's from an SAIC magazine that was in the garbage that I was like, want that.
Mhm.
And then like the Black Dolls thing, I found someone close to me passed away, and Black Dolls, for those who doesn't know, do not know, Black Dolls is a pornographic magazine, but I did find some of this smut in the collection of one of my deceased family members' things, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. It's interesting how like erotic material has changed. I frequent the Gerber Hart Library Archive. I love Gerber Hart. Shout out to Gerber Hart in Chicago.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like I spent a lot of time there this summer looking through like adult material. And I was just like, oh, like these people are not just like being freaky, like they're just like trying to connect to each other. And that's hot and fun. Um, so I was kind of speaking to that. And I also just like talking, or I like witnessing like intentionally erotic things. Like to make a pornographic magazine, you would have to like pose these models. Like this isn't just like putting an iPhone up, and recording something. Like this is like really artful. And I
Mhm.
think it's fun to use that as a tool, especially like in the modern era where like we come into contact with very like sexual images that aren't necessarily erotic. But we can talk about that at different times.
Good was that. Yeah, and what I really also appreciated about this particular work was the um kind of abstraction of the body and like the way that the shapes follow, you know,
Mhm.
lead into the other uh parts of the piece. Like I just thought it was so brilliant to kind of have this curve of the buttock, if we're being technical, with this open um envelope. And I don't know, there's like the mystery, the intrigue, but then also, paired with more of these kind of explicit but still obscured um kind of moments. There's just a lot of yeah, a lot of specialness in that.
Thank you. Yeah, I liked collecting for this one a lot.
Hmm.
I like to I like to find stuff. I like to dig around. It's good.
Yeah. And I like it was like very, I feel like this one was very demure, you know,
Hmm.
very subdued in a way, but you have to really get up close to it and really read. And I feel like that was a really fun thing to decode if we're talking about codes. Um, so yeah, we're at our time for Q&A. So audience, if you have any questions for Bri, feel free to add those in the chat right now. And we'll have about 10 minutes for Q&A.
Chat. I like that you said demure. I'm interjecting now because I can. I like that you said demure for that one because I was thinking for the first one, second one. Why do I forget my children's names?
Mhm.
This one, muzzle. I was thinking about my gender, my identity, how I felt like to be a dyke is like sometimes not the most demure thing to feel. Um, and I feel like that's an interesting contrast, like between the weeks. Like this is like my first week in lat. I was
Mhm.
like, I feel weird. I don't feel cute. I feel like, eh. And coming up on the end, I'm like, let's get beautiful with it. Like let's really get lush and soft.
I like that. Okay, we do have a question from the audience. Jordan asks, I'm curious about your relationship to titles, how you come up with them, and your relationship to materialists, thinking about artists like Vanessa German, especially considering your relationship to text within the work.
Mm, I feel like titles for me, a lot of these titles are just song titles that I'm like,
Oh, I was.
I was listening to the song and then I made this and then I was like, kind of applies. I think the only one that isn't a song title is Hyacinth and Hydrangeas because I was thinking about my grandma's favorite flowers because she sent me this letter.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
Um, but yeah, I love Vanessa German and I love uh how
Contextual.
she does like what'd you say?
Never mind, you're about to do. I was going to say, can you contextualize Vanessa German?
Vanessa German does sculptures with found objects that she imbues with meaning and feeling. Uh, and then she writes these really long poetic materialist that often relate to the context in which she's making things. Um, she's also a diva. Uh, I really like her work. I think as far as materials go, I like writing the material is for me is typically just me being like, what actually did I put in that? More often than not. But the last part of that, text within the work, yeah, I feel like it always comes back to song with me. Like I'm just trying to be lyrical for some reason. A lyric is a
Ooh.
poem is an offering. That's what I'm trying to do.
Period. And yeah, is one of the words that I did think of when viewing these was visual poems. Like there was so much poetic movement and um, composition. Okay, Tracy asked, is your process more like I have an idea and I want to find materials to actualize it, or is it more finding pieces and then the idea comes after? It's a great question.
That is a great question. It's always pieces first with me though. I feel like I'm always like finding, hoarding, junking. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that actually reminds me of when I was 6 years old. And me and my brother were playing. Oh my God. And then I make something and I'm like doing that. But I wonder what it would be like if I had an idea and then I'm like, let me find 6 Dorito bags and see what they do. That could be fun.
I think that could be an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
Sydney asks, do you use scissors or an X-Acto?
Ah, me. Sydney, I don't use an Exacto because it scares me. And I often am not looking for precision. I
Mm.
it may look like it, but I'm usually not. I think scissors scissors connect me to my jovial spirit. Like I'm not kidding. It's silly, but I feel like when I'm using scissors, I'm in first grade art,
Mhm.
and that's a good time.
I love that. Um, Taylor asks, "Hi, this was lovely. I'm wondering about your relationship to print materials like magazines and newspapers, especially in a place-based context. As being in Chicago, a site of beautiful Black publications like Jet, Ebony, The Chicago Defender, etc., changed or informed your approach to making work? Is it different than what you've made in Ohio?"
That's tea. That's tea. I feel like that's really interesting. Like, I haven't really thought about the place as it relates to the magazines. I feel like I'm thinking a lot about magazines. I'm thinking a lot about zines and like,
But
dispersing information, like the emerge within digital zine
exactly.
available at withindigital.net. I'm
Oop,
thinking about that kind of thing.
go card.
And I'm also thinking about seeing magazines. Like hmm, I have yet to like imbue place of magazine publication into my process. But that's interesting. And I will be eating those nachos. That's really cool.
That's a
Um, one more time.
Oh, I just said that's a great question.
Yeah, I think it's it's like yes, but no, because like I have visited Rebuild and gone through like that was with you.
Yeah, I
We
was
went
gonna mention that, but I was like, wait, I don't know. This is the time, but yeah.
that was really fun. And we looked at the Jet and the Ebony archives, and I do be in Gerberhardt down looking at magazine archives,
Yeah,
but I haven't really made that link yet. So that's really cool, really interesting.
that was a great question.
Yeah.
Just think
Ooh.
I have any other Q&As, but I did really want to talk about this piece because I think this was one of my favorites, and we have a few more minutes before we need to close out of here. But yeah, I just wanted to see if you could talk more about this piece. And one of the things I really loved about this one was the um all of the smaller arms radiating from this large arm. And what I took from this particular piece was like amidst all of this kind of noise, there's this anchoring and protection and connection. And I just think this is a beautiful way, honestly, to end, as we were talking about the matrilineage, matriarchal family, and your, yeah, all that. So,
I owe everything in my life to the divas that came before me. Like I was saying in the beginning, uh, I come from a big, juicy family, and Sydney, you ate that. I come from a big, juicy family, and this piece was for my mom. My mom is a child of nine more. There are nine mores that she is one of. It's a double entendre. Um, but I think I was thinking a lot about my grandmother as this anchor in my family, hence her arm and like that's the big anchoring arm. It's my grandma's arm. And then there are nine hands sticking out of it, which are her nine children. Um, and shout out to grandmas. I was thinking a lot about grief and loss as it relates to my mom. I feel like we have similar upbringings where she was like experiencing a lot of difficult things as a child. We're divas that are cut from the same cloth, so to speak. But my mom's the youngest of nine kids. I'm the youngest of two. I think a lot about that and how we relate to one another. I feel like we're getting closer every day, me and that girl. Um, but my mom is into the lottery a little bit. I'm afraid of the lottery. I found a bunch of lottery tickets on
mhm.
the train, on the street, wherever. And I was like, let's get into that.
Mm,
I think the lottery is odd and it like really makes me nervous. But at the same time, me, an optimist, I'm like, oh, like it's kind of cute that like people have faith in this thing. Like this is a freeing sort of something.
mhm.
And I think that's kind of a cool concept. I think it's really cool to have hope and faith in things. And I feel like that faith and hope that she has about the lottery also exists in her relationship to her family, and it does in me too. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm always thinking about those divas.
that was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, let's just shout out Bri in the chat as we close out for this amazing, amazing peek into their brain and all the wonderful work they produce. Let's just go back and look through it at Latitude. There's so much more we could talk about. We might have to honestly just do a part two because there's just so much. And it was just so awesome. So let's shout out Bri.
Ooh, thank you, divas. Thank you for listening to me, divas.
So
Mhm.
we're going to do some plugs. So if you want to connect with Within, you can connect with us on our website at withindigital.net, our Instagram at within.digital_, our YouTube, our Spotify, our Substack. If you want to send us some cash to help fund future programming, you can do that via Cash App. And
Yeah.
also check out our archive from our event Emerge that happened in October 2024, a fabulous event taking place in Ohio.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's us. And
Uh,
then I'll let Bri plug herself.
if you're in Chicago, I'll be talking at Gerber Hart on March 13th about archives and art. If you want to ask me questions about my process in the email, you can email me at enterthenickerverse@gmail.com. If you want to connect with me and look at more of my art, I have a website, which is also enterthenickerverse at format.com. The zero is important to note. I have a Substack, and then my Instagram is there as well. Thank
Yay!
you for chatting with me. Also, shout out to Latitude. Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely month. I made so much work.
Shout out Latitude, shout out artist resources, shout out support. We love that.
Oh my
All right.
gosh. One bingo. Wait.
Oh yes, let's see the bingo card.
Period.
Wait, can I drag this and open this
Like,
up?
how do I save that?
Right. Me. Like, hold on, I'm gonna save this. I want to show it on screen so we have right.
Wow.
Okay. Let me see
Thank you.
if I can share my screen, the screen that shows the bingo card. Okay, there we go. Look at that bingo card. I have
Wow.
talk about. I did say exactly. I tried to say it, but I think there was a lot happening.
I
So,
missed the Toni Morrison. Oh,
we didn't talk about Tony. But we did talk about a lot.
you did.
So let's play out the music and we'll see y'all next time. If I can just